All right, good guys. How are you guys doing? Okay, we have a little lag of 7 seconds, so let's just wait for the audience to come in. We are going live right now. Okay, and let me just look at the number of people joining in for today. All right, give us a little time while we arrange the logistics. Okay, hi everybody, and welcome to the evening show with your host Rama. Okay, while waiting for the audience to check in, all right, let me just share with you a little bit about today's topic. Okay, the Ministry of Law has been very fast in forming temporary relief for the commercial and industrial sectors by introducing a bill aimed at helping tenants who are unable to pay rent during this period. They've also clearly spelled out the categories of contracts covered by the bill and the proposed relief period. So this actually makes it a lot easier for tenants and landlords to start planning for the near future. But I can't say it's the same for the residential sector. Okay, there's no such bill, or there's no guidelines to help negotiate between the two parties. Okay, so we identified there's a gap, moving forward, and we decided to address this issue. So today we'll be addressing important questions, okay, with regards to this gap, and we'll also be taking questions from time to time. All right. So let's not wait any longer and welcome our guest for today, Mr. Adam Wang from Coldwell Banker Firm. Okay, Adam is a seasoned consultant and he's been in the real estate market for more than 20 years. All right. Hi, welcome to the show, Adam. How are you feeling today?
Hi, Rama. Thank you for the invitation. I'm okay. I'm doing well.
All right. So good. As recently we are facing a lot of issues with landlords and tenants. So for the commercial sector, it's very straightforward. The government has come up with all the measures and everything, so it's pretty straightforward. But with residential sector, it is up to the real estate agents to be the middleman, and resolve issues in the current situation. So, before we start, can you just explain to us? I know you do a lot of rental transactions and everything. How do you find the rental market currently, I mean, be it HDB or private property?
Okay, I think at this current moment, we are still seeing quite a pretty good number of listing inquiries coming in from tenants. For residential, is both the condos and also for the HDB, entire apartment and also even for room rental.
Okay, I understand that you were telling me earlier on that you still get a lot of calls from tenants wanting to view the property. I mean, it's been quite a number of days and they are unable to view. So how do you attend to these tenants?
Okay, basically, I think according to the Council of Estate Agencies, agents are not supposed to conduct any physical home viewing for be it rental or sales. So we also try to minimize the contact between landlords and prospective tenants. So what we suggest to inquiries coming in from tenants is that try to view the property through the online photos and also the videos if they are available. In cases whereby the tenant wants to see the house in a more detail, we will actually try to arrange for video calls. So the video calls can be between the landlord, ourselves as agent, and also the tenants. Yeah.
Okay.
So so that the tenant can emphasize to the landlord what they want to, or which part of the house that they want to see.
So life still goes on, yeah?
Yep.
All right. As a matter of fact, one of the most interesting thing is videos. Last time we don't really take videos so much, but now you see how useful these videos are coming in, especially considering the current climate. So those agents who had actually taken videos prior to this, good luck to them. So they have something extra in the advertisements. All right. I also understand that some of the some of the tenants are having difficulty paying their rents in this period. What do you have to say about these things?
Okay, basically for residential, there is not much help from the government at this moment. So the landlords are actually also caught in between. Whereas for the commercial industrial sector, there is a bill, as what you mentioned earlier, that actually allows owner to give some rebates back to the tenants. Yeah. So personally, I would say that the residential landlord should actually try to understand the situation the tenant is in right now, and if can try to understand and maybe come up with a compromise, so that you keep the tenant and at the same time you will still continue to have your rental income.
Yep. I mean, like what we have discussed, the government has not come in strong enough to come up with any bills to address this issue. So as agents, real estate agents, do you think we have a sense, I mean, we have responsibility to handle these issues? Because I'm very sure that a lot of the agents out there right now are having issues with their landlords and tenants. Most of them are landlords calling the agents and asking them, hey, look, my tenant is unable to pay the rent hasn't come in. What should we do about it? So during this kind of situations, as an agent, how do you react? I'm sure you have more than one. So
okay, I mean, personally, on hand, I have 7 different properties that are actually facing this issue, residential. I have tenants who ask for rent holiday. I have tenants who ask for a slight discount or even rental deferment. Yeah, so every case is different. Every landlord is also in a very different situation. Some of them may be affected themselves. Okay, let me tell you about one particular case that I have. It's actually a HDB rental. Okay, the tenant, about 2 or 3 of them are actually working in the aviation industry. So aviation industry right now is very they are actually taking unpaid leave. Okay, so with the unpaid leave, they are actually seeking help from us, telling the landlord, can they take a rent deferment or even a huge discount by 50%. So after I speak to the landlord was telling me it's very difficult because my wife is also getting an unpaid leave. So I'm also facing issue. So after much haggling or negotiation, I would say, we finally decided to give the tenant a $200 rental discount on a month-by-month basis.
So this particular example is a discount. So when you say discount, this $200 is written off by the landlord for this period of time. Is that what you're saying?
All right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I understand from the commercial and industrial segment, right? They can defer the rental payment, but eventually, when times get better, they still have to pay this money. So landlords today are actually residential landlords. Okay, they are today actually looking up to this particular line that's been mentioned and say, okay, I'm okay to give a discount right now, but their discount is different from the discount that you just mentioned. Okay, the discount is I let them pay 50% of the rent, or maybe I let them pay 20% of the rent because they can't pay right now, but eventually they have to pay this full amount. Whether be it in installments or in full.
Correct. I mean, the other case of mine, what happened was that we actually allowed the tenant to do a 50% deferment. So instead of paying $3,000 this month, you can pay $1,500 first. Then the rest of the $1,500, we will actually the tenant will repay it within 5 installments, together with the future rental. Yeah.
Okay, we have audience Eileen was saying that there's a lot of discount, $200 especially for HDB. But well, we have different types of landlords. Some of them are more understanding. But again, I believe that the landlords who are giving out discount, they may not have a pain point on their end, because there are landlords out there who depend on this rental to pay their monthly installments as well. So I have people saying, yeah, go on, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Some of the landlords may not be in such a strong financial standing, so they also have mortgages to pay, and not just mortgages. If you are in a condominium, you need to pay the condo maintenance charges. HDB, you need to pay the conservancy fee, right, and property taxes. So there are cases whereby landlords it's not that they are unwilling to do it, but they are unable to do it. They're unable to give any discount or deferment. Yeah, I would say that.
All right, I too have a recent interesting case study. Maybe you two share the same case study as well. But let me just go through this. I had a client of mine calling me. They actually got a rental unit in a private property. All right,
Okay.
recently. All right, maybe 2 months back, and their key handover is in mid of May. All right. So the agent has actually said to both the landlord and the tenant that, look, I won't be there. All right. So you guys have to do this yourself. That means the inventory taking, handover, takeover, everything's going to be done by the landlord and tenant. But then few days into it, the landlord calls up the tenant and says, look, I can't be there as well. So you got to do this on your own. So
Yes.
she gets a bit stressed, and then she calls me and she said, Rama, how am I going to do this alone by myself? I said, first of all, you have to get SS into the house. So how are you going to get the keys? So she said, they'll leave the key outside the house with some number lock and anything. I'm going to pick it up from there and, get into the house myself and start doing all this. So interestingly, she asked me, so how am I supposed to do this? I said, well, you have a smartphone with you, so you got to record everything online. You got to capture it and document it somewhere, or maybe go live with them and use a recording app to, record the whole handover takeover process. I mean, this is how the industry has come to today. We have to manage things this way, but they don't have a choice. They have to move in, and this is what they have to do. Do you have some similar cases like this? Because agents can't go.
Yes, correct. Actually, about 3 days ago, one of my salesperson called me that he's experiencing this issue of the current tenant moving out, and they have to take back the house, tidy it up, and hand it to the next tenant. So my advice to her was that you should, because definitely the agent cannot go there. And because the landlord is an elderly, so all along the agent has been managing for the landlord. So I suggested to the agent, why don't you communicate with the tenant through email? Okay. So, and check with the tenant, is there anything that he would like to identify that something wrong with the house before we actually do the handover. And of course, there must be a disclaimer. Okay, if let's say after we enter the house, we find that things are not as what the tenant mentioned, the landlord still has the right to deduct this or make good this from the deposit. Yeah.
We have sorry, go on, Adam.
No problem. And actually, as what you mentioned, we got the tenant to leave the key in the letterbox, and within 5 minutes, the agent will go and pick it up.
Yep. So this is to adhere to the social distancing rule, right?
Yes.
All right. We have a audience. Bruce. Thank you, Bruce. He also had a good point here. Landlords can also request for mortgage deferment from the bank.
Correct.
So this is. I mean, this is interesting. If the tenant tells the landlord, hey, during this period, you can actually request for deferment. But yeah, what do you think of that?
I think it's definitely a way, an option for landlords who are unable to get the tenant to pay up in full, and yet they need the rental income to pay up for the mortgages. So I think asking for a deferment will actually help. The deferment, they allow for up to 6 months.
Yep. So you see, the idea is this, the pain is on both sides, so especially during this time, we should all stay united. The important thing is to get over this virus, and not haggle on this kind of little things. If you're able to come to a middle ground, I think you should.
Right.
Okay, we have a very interesting comment from Mavis. I'm going to put it up on the screen. All right.
Sure.
She says, I have a tenant who wants landlord to compensate them because they are not able to use the pool, garden, as in it's not good shape, because these are considered non-essential services. Landlord says they should not be held responsible. So I agree with her. What do you think, Adam?
Yes, I will agree, especially in cases like apartments or condominiums. The facilities are actually just an ancillary to the property, right? it's not the property itself. So it's not a must-have that the landlord will have to provide to the tenant. I mean, and at this moment, we are in a circuit breaker situation. So of course, the rules were actually the rules set up by the government will actually override how the condos can actually be operate their facilities here.
Actually, you just brought up a very good point, Adam, because you see, for any tenancy, the most important document is the tenancy agreement. All right.
Yes.
So in the case of Mavis's question, the tenant actually used the point that she's unable to use the facility, so she wants the discount. But at the same time, something came up to my mind. There is a clause in the tenancy agreement that says that if the rent is unpaid for 7 days, the landlord is able to charge interest and all this. So we did discuss what if the tenant can't pay up in time or can't pay the month's rent and everything. So I think it's good for the tenant or the tenant's agent to write in through a email or anything, to inform the landlord, look, I'm having an issue right now, I'm unable to pay, and so please, with regards to this particular clause in the contract, I would not be able to pay, so could you give me a waiver, or can we agree on something, and then document it? What do you think? It's good to document it?
I mean, it's always good to document all the communications between the landlord and the tenant, because I mean, the tenancy can be for 2 years, 3 years, I mean, or even longer. So we don't want to have an argument after during the handover 2 or 3 years later, right? Because by then everyone will start to forget bits and pieces of it. Yeah.
Yep. All right. We have another question from the floor. Okay. From Sash. Okay. She's saying, how about the inventory list during tenants' loan visit to the unit on the date of handover? Do you recommend a live handover or a recorded video?
A live handover will be much better, but always turn on the recording facility. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, you can do both at the same time. Actually, yeah. You have a lot of apps that actually record the video as well. Correct. So we hope that we have answered your questions, Sash. If not, you can always leave us a message. We'll get back to you. All right. We have another question from Eileen. Can the tenant just leave the key in a mailbox, and can I go and pick it up, or the owner do it?
Can the agent go and pick it up, or the owner go and pick it up?
Okay, the question is, can the tenant just leave the key in the mailbox, and can I go and pick it up, or the owner do it? I guess this is for handover, as in their. I doubt this will happen right now, because most of the contracts, although they're ending, unless they have a place to move into, they will not be moving right now. So maybe you can repeat the question again, Eileen. All right, you don't understand. All right, okay, that's about the question we have there. So let's move on to our questions. All right.
Yes.
Why do you think, in your opinion, the government has not addressed this issue?
Okay, and basically, I will find that the government actually right now put more priority into fighting the virus. Okay, fighting the virus and making sure that everyone still can collect their wages, putting food on the table. That is I think that is what the government should do, and I think it's correct.
All right, I think that's a good point too, because you know why? I think at this moment, I think we guys, the landlords and tenants, we should not be putting pressure on the government to come up with this, but nonetheless try to resolve the issues by ourselves and find the middle ground. Like for example, one of my cases was this couple, okay, local couples. They are unable to pay the rent because they can't come out of the house, and they are daily waged, one of them, and the other one is they don't have enough. The salary is not coming in at the moment because the company is having issues as well. So they basically use the relief that each of them got, to pay the rent. But they were like, I can pay for this month, but I don't know what's going to happen if this is going to last longer, And then, well, the landlord was good enough. She said, okay, fine. They can just pay half for this month, whatever they have, and the balance they have to pay me back later. And then, of course, the tenant comes back. Oh, I have to pay the rest after this thing is over. Oh, what if I don't have any money to pay at that point in time? So, I mean, this is something we don't have an answer to right now, okay, because we don't know how this will end up, whether this will be extended or, it'll end in another couple of months. But I told her right now, let's just be happy that this landlord is understanding and giving you a discount. and agreeing to it. So I think these are things that landlords and tenants can, easily resolve by themselves. I mean, if you need your agent to get involved, I think agents are there, they are also there to get involved and resolve these issues for you. So right now, the thing is this, okay, when these tenants really can't pay, even after the virus situation is over, so what do you think happens at this point?
Okay. Oh, this is a tricky one. Okay,
Yep.
basically, the tenancy is definitely a legal document, right?
Yep.
So both parties should actually fulfill the obligations in the tenancy, right? So no one is actually allowed to break the tenancy without any compensation to the other party. So both sides should sit down together, come to a compromise, and hopefully can resolve this amicably, right? In the worst scenario, I'm referring to residential. In the worst scenario, if the landlord will have to haul the tenant to court, that doesn't look nice, yeah.
Okay, I mean, Eileen is continued to say that, those tenants who are unable to pay, they may want to show the proof of why they are unable to pay via email, and then maybe get it resolved at the moment. I think that that's a good idea, because there will definitely be other tenants who will be taking advantage, even if they are not in any issues as well. So I think that's a good point. We have something from Emily. Okay, tenants are to abide by the MCST rules and regulations, which in turn is subjected to SG government regulations. So all facilities are closed by law and not by landlords, and yep, she's right. I mean, she's answering the question by Mavis. Yeah.
All right.
And we also have Peter coming in, and he's saying that legally agents are not allowed to perform duty during this circuit breaker period. Thus, we should explain, to the landlord, and he has to pick up the key by himself, or else one day he may complain to Seeya that his agents actually help him during this period, and there goes the agent's license. True enough. I understand what Peter is saying, because many of the landlords and tenants are wondering, why is the agent not helping me at this point? So today, this interview, I mean, I'm having with you this discussion, so we want to document that, agents really cannot do much during this period.
I think there is legality and ethical issue over here. I mean, of course, you want to talk about legality wise. We are informed by the Council of Estate Agents that we are not supposed to conduct any physical real estate work currently. So if you say go and picking up the keys, I believe it can constitute to a real estate work, right? But if you don't pick it up, if you don't pick up the keys from the landlords, and at the end of the day, the landlord is unable to pick up the key on his own. So I mean, you got to weigh the situation, right?
Yep.
You got to weigh the situation.
So we almost, I mean, let's see if there's any more questions from the audience. Okay. Okay. In the meantime, maybe do you have any other case studies apart from the two that you discussed that you would like to share with the audience, or would you like to share something about the industrial and commercial property? Because before the show started, more audience from that category actually. Why aren't you talking about commercial tenants and all this stuff? Yeah.
Perhaps if you can allow me, I can actually show the. I can actually share my screen. Okay, you actually explain about the act that is actually helping the commercial and industrial tenants.
Okay, sure. You put it up on the screen.
Yeah, no problem.
Right, good. As we are speaking, there are more questions coming in. We will attend to those after this explanation by you. All right. Can I share it now?
Yeah. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes. There you go.
Okay, so basically, this is the COVID-19 Temporary Measure Act that was put up very recently. So this is this act is actually more of a temporary relief for businesses. Okay. So we are going to cover on the commercial industrial property lease. So this act itself actually allows tenants who are affected by COVID-19 and are unable to fulfill their obligation of paying rental. So they are allowed to actually suspend rental payment for up to 6 months. Yeah. So of course, this only covers a specific period for rental from February onwards. Okay, because the COVID-19 affects Singapore only in very late January, right? So as a landlord, if your tenant is affected by the COVID-19 issue and you can't pay up the rent, the landlord, I will basically say that you're unable to evict the tenant. Right. So rather than to put yourself in a difficult situation, why don't talk to the tenant and come up to a compromise, right? Hopefully ask for partial payment first, and same as residential, partial payment, and the rest can come later, right? And of course, there's more help to them rather than this. There is also property tax rebate given to commercial and industrial landlords. So the landlords are supposed to pass all these rebates back to the tenant.
So this is the tricky part, Adam. When you hear the landlords are supposed to pass back this whatever they get from the government to the tenant, so this resonates very well with everyone, especially all the tenants, in the residential segment as well. So they're asking, how come the landlord is not giving me discounts because the government is giving discounts to the landlord, but what they don't understand is it is not to the residential segment but to the commercial. So that's the reason why I asked you to bring that up. Maybe we want to go back to the questions. There are more questions from the ground. All right.
Sure.
Are you okay with that, Adam?
Sure. I'll stop the sharing.
All right. Yep. Okay. Just a minute. Okay. We have a question from Amy. Okay. She's saying she's got a handover in mid-May. So how do I get the tenant to sign the handover form if the owner and I can't be present?
It will be good for you to use electronic signature at this moment, I would say, right? The Council of Estate Agents has also recommended us to use e-signatory instead of wet ink signature. So I think using that, then you will actually eliminate the meeting of your landlords or your tenants.
All right, we have another question from Mavis. Okay, one of our clients' lease is expiring in May, end of May, and he's downgrading. But with this circuit breaker, he has no chance to view any property. So he's getting a little nervous. And the landlord agent, on the other hand, is requesting tenant to do a video of the unit so as to get a tenant. So now tenant is seeking my advice. What is the best step to take moving forward? Okay, this is interesting. That means they're trying to get the current vacating tenant to do agent's job. What do you have to say about this?
I would say that if he's really in a hurry that he has to move by end May, and with the current situation whereby we can't do a physical viewing, the video call viewing is actually one of the possibility, right? Video call, because a normal video, a normal property video, it may be going too fast for the tenant to take a look at it, but a video call, you can actually take your time and look through more carefully. For listings that they actually make use of the 360 virtual tours, I think that will be more ideal.
Okay, we have Belinda Cheong saying, why not they just extend for this period and stop all the movement which she feels is unnecessary. Only Mavis can answer that question in the comment box. Why the current tenant and landlord can't agree on a short-term extension to this contract, Yeah, that's a good suggestion by Belinda. All right, Adam, we have come to the end of the discussion. So unless we have any more questions from the ground, maybe you have some parting words, maybe you have some advice for the tenants and landlords before we end this.
My advice is more for the residential property, because since the commercial and industrial property is already being covered or well taken care of by the government. If your tenant is really, to the landlords, if your tenant is really facing difficulty having to pay the rent, think you should seriously sit down and reconsider carefully. Should you actually allow the tenant to pay partially and the rest later part, rather than to evict the tenant? I mean, of course, residential landlord, you can evict the tenant, but if you evict the tenant, how fast are you able to get the next tenant right now?
As a matter of fact, they are unable to evict the tenant at this present moment. Considering what the government said in February. I have an article on that. But anyway, I think the questions are starting to come in. We have. Are you okay with that, Adam?
I'm okay.
All right. Thank you, Eric Pang. Thanks that you can drop by. Okay. Hi. What if the commercial lease end in July 2020 and now tenant requests to activate the 6-month rental deferment mentioned by the government, as they have problems paying now? Landlords worried that after July, tenant will run away and not paying after that. Any advice?
The rental deferment is good up to October, but it actually spells out that at the end of the day, the tenant is still supposed to fulfill the obligation of paying the rent. So you can pay later, but it doesn't mean that you don't need to pay, right? So, but for Eric's case, the tenancy will end in July, so it falls within that period. So I would say try to get him to pay as much partially as possible. If in the worst scenario, whatever shortfall, if it can be covered by the deposit, that should be good. That should be good.
I think you're right too, because it all depends on the amount of deposit that's being held by the landlord.
Yes.
Because for some commercial cases, it could be up to 3 months or even 4 months.
Yes.
So if they're holding on to a very minimal amount, then I think Eric is correct in asking these questions, because it is not so favorable for the landlord, because depending on who the tenant is, the tenant can just vanish into thin air. I mean, in commercial tenancies, tenants come from everywhere. They may not be local, they may be a company, but you don't know who the directors are. They may just close the company and tomorrow they are gone. So I think what the question that he posed is a very, very valid question. And like what you mentioned, I think get as much as possible out of them. And I don't know if you can involve a lawyer in drafting out a agreement, between the two parties, and trying to make them commit that, they will pay this. If not, what happens, those kind of things. All right, we have another question from Peter 1. I had one handover of a shop about 1 week ago. The tenant took picture of the shop and confirmed he moved out. All right, I will collect key from him after the circuit breaker. At the moment, no viewing is allowed, thus no need to collect keys immediately. I think not all handover needs signing of form.
Forms.
Of forms, okay. So basically what he's saying is,
I think he's referring more to commercial commercial shops or even industrial warehouses, whereby normally the property is given you bare.
All right, we have another question from Jimmy Ng. Okay, this is a long one, Adam. I'm representing the owner. Tenant had requested the wish list, as in letter of intent. Example, renovated vanity top and basin, install lower cabinet. Luckily, contractor managed to finish the vanity top, install the basin, water tap, and blah, blah, blah. All right, tenant moved in on the start date on the 20th April and wanted the owner to give half-month discount, because not all the works were finished as per LOI. So we had told tenant and co-broker that this is due to the latest government. So what do you think can be done here? Because like you said, whatever that was mentioned in the LOI is not been fulfilled, So is the tenant correct in asking for a discount?
Up to a certain extent, I would think so, yes. But because the landlord is unable to fulfill the request as stated in the LOI. However, because of circuit breaker and because of the Malaysian MCO orders, so contractors may not be able to finish the work on time, right? I think not so much so that the landlord doesn't want to fulfill his obligation, right? But it's rather they're unable to do so, right? So I think they should try to explain this to the tenant. Let him know that it's not that we don't want to finish the job. So, but out of a good gesture, maybe the landlord can actually give the tenant some small little token of so as to smooth his feelings.
Okay, I understand that if it is an essential job, as in plumbing, water leakage and everything, those things need to be carried out. But I think
Yes.
in the case of, sorry, who's that? Jimmy, all right? It's not an essential renovation
No,
per se,
yeah.
So I believe in the spirit of law, okay? As in whatever the government is asking us to do, we are trying to cooperate. We're trying to make this happen as a community together, So
Yes.
we have to play ball. I understand that, for the first month or the next 2 months, you don't have certain facilities, certain perks that you actually are paying for. But of course, if it continues to extend, yeah, maybe the landlord can give a little bit of discount. These are all be able. You can always sit down and talk about this. They don't need to be so ruthless about in your discussion, and it goes into a fight and all this thing. I think everything can be negotiated. At the end of the day.
Yes.
All right, we'll go back to Eric's pain. All right, look, this is what he has said. His next 3 months rental amounts to $72,000. So that is the problem. That what if this guy runs away?
I mean, if the rental for the next 3 months is 72,000, but how much deposit is the owner holding on to, right?
Yeah.
Still go back to the same theory.
All right, we have a very interesting question from Helena. Okay, she's asking, do you think we need to create a Corona clause in the LOI? Very interesting. Okay, I want to take this opportunity to say something. I mean, all agreements can be manipulated, all right, rather adjusted. I mean, you choose the right word. Okay, so if you deem fit, all right, maybe you can check with your company, because tenancy agreement comes from the company as well. So maybe you want to check with your company, all right, and whether you can create an additional clause that addresses the issues faced during this Corona period. For me, I try to be as specific as possible in the TA, not in the LOI, not only in the LOI, in the TA itself. All right. So maybe after this episode, we have just after the natural calamities, you can add on things like this. In cases where we have an pandemic like this, what can be done and everything. Yeah, I think that's possible. But of course, put it through your company as well and get them to approve it. Adam, you have anything to add on that?
Yes, I agree with what you say, because at the end of the day, you should fall back to your estate agent to consult your KEO on how do we go about on this, right? You may even, maybe the agency may even want to engage a lawyer to draft the clause. Yeah.
All right, interesting. Okay, we have another question from Susan. Okay, if the work that is not done due to the circuit breaker, and if the work does not prevent them from enjoyment of the unit, it will be unreasonable to slash the rent. What do you think about this, Adam?
If the work is not done due to circuit breaker, and if the work...
So basically, what she's saying is,
okay. So
yeah.
as what I mentioned, it's not that the landlord doesn't want to fulfill his obligation, but it's because of the so-called partial lockdown or whatever you call it. Yeah. So we are being forced by circumstances, right? It's not that the landlord doesn't want to fulfill. So it's correct that the landlord is supposed to do what he's supposed to make good, put up the new furniture before the tenant move in. But at this point of time, it's really beyond what beyond individuals' control.
It's very interesting, Adam. Today, I was expecting a lot of landlords and tenants to come in to ask questions, but our biggest fanfare today is from the agents themselves. It's interesting. Okay.
I think
Eric is saying,
Eric, yeah.
Sorry, Eric's saying that the deposit is 2 months, so I believe that it's not enough to cover the period. So
okay. There is another 3 months to the completion of the tenancy. You have 2 months deposit with you. Not forgetting the fact that there is property tax rebate. So you're actually your shortfall is actually less than 1 month. So try to explain that to the tenant and see whether can you recover this amount over the next 3 months. That's what I suggest.
Yep, Eric, same thing from me also. I would be equally worried, if I face such a situation, because the landlord would be expecting the agent to take control of this and try to have minimal loss as possible. So good. Try to get the tenant to commit to a additional contract. Find out more where they are, and if you're dealing directly with the tenant, maybe you know more about the tenant. If not, maybe you want to engage the co-broke agent and find out what these guys are going to do after this, and find out more information in the meantime. What's their plans, where are they going, have they found a new unit, so at least you can find them in the future. Unless these guys are totally closing shop, we have a problem.
I would like to touch on something.
Please.
Okay, if I'm allowed to.
Yes.
From the property tax rebate is actually given for the entire year, for the year 2020. So if your tenant is going to vacate in July, so make sure you don't give the entire rebate back to the tenant, right? Because you should keep part the other prorate and keep the other part of the rebate for the next tenant that's coming in.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah. All right. Warren has got a hi. Wanted to ask something involving uncertain situations and recent imposed SHN for all passes in the construction sector. My landlord signed the lease, but tenant, which is the company, wanted to delay the commencement of the lease with no defined date, citing the above reason. How long would you think or deem as fair for both parties before the lease should start? All right.
This is become it's an order by the government for them to go into quarantine, right? So same thing. It's very similar to the other question, whereby the landlord cannot fulfill the obligation. In this case, the tenant cannot fulfill the obligation, right? But it's all because it's an order from the relevant authority. So if it's only for the next 14 days or so, I think you can actually push your commencement date back by 14 days. Yeah.
All right, Adam, I have a case with a similar issue. So Warren, maybe I can just add in. Okay, for commercial tenants, you see, depending on the unit that they're taking, they may ask for rent-free period. You agree, Adam? Rent-free period.
Yes.
So what's the purpose of a rent-free period when you can't make use of the rent-free period, because you can't have workers working on the unit, you can't have renovation going on? So I think what this tenant is saying is a valid point. Because if I'm going to take over the unit early, I can't do any work. I can't start my business. So I think it's a very valid point. And I think as a commercial landlord, they should not lose this tenant. All right. I'd rather keep them and, play along, and maybe after 1st of June, give them the rent-free period, get the work done, and move forward. I think that's the right thing to do. So maybe, Warren, you can explain to your, whoever the other agent is, the landlord, that, they can't do anything in this period, no construction, no renovation work. So they are also unable to move. So I think the landlord should be more understanding, and that's what happened in my situation. I was serving the tenant though, but the landlord was very understanding, so it was lucky. It was an easy thing.
Actually, earlier today, I had the same situation. I was supposed to have a tenant starting. We are supposed to give them the keys on the 1st of May, and they should start the rent by the 15th of May. It's for a shop in Katong area. Okay, but because of the extended circuit breaker, so I called the landlord. The landlord straight away told me it's okay. Just let him start by 1.5 months later. It's okay. It's fine.
All right. Of course, we have Emily saying that landlord is not liable for circumstances beyond the control. Okay, good. And Peter is agreeing with Helena. In future, good to add the clause not only during the event on coronavirus, but also in the event landlord is unable to fulfill on time certain promises, due to tenants. All right, good. Let's see. There are more questions coming in, Adam. So. All right, let's do this one. All right, my tenant has moved out and the deposit has to be returned within 14 weeks. Why 14
weeks? 14 days. 14 days. 14 days.
Yeah. However, the owner, who is also an agent, okay, said there are 3 bulbs and 2 stopper that needs to be fixed, and she's trying to get a quotation. The 14 days is due, and the said due date she can't get a quotation from a handyman. So what should my tenant do as they need their deposit back? Okay. So, well, I think this is what you call penny wise, pound foolish. But anyway, I understand what Amy is going through, because this is not, she's the agent. Okay, of course, always the agent gets in between all these things. So how is she supposed to handle this? I would educate the landlord. During this period, maybe if you feel that this is the amount that would cost to repair these things, just take that amount and return the rest of the deposit and say, look, we'll look at it after a period of time.
Yes,
So what do you think? Is that a good thing to do?
that is one of the method. Or otherwise, I would suggest, because she mentioned 3 bulbs and 2 stoppers. Why don't just go online and find out what's the price of the bulbs and the stoppers, and check with a contractor or handyman what is his what you call that, his handyman cost. Then just buy the item and just go and fix it and deduct from the tenant. It's the same.
All right, Adam, I'm just going to take one more question because it's getting too long, but never mind. Let's just see. Stas is saying, honest, moving into a rental unit is very challenging for the tenants. There's delay in ordered furnitures arriving from overseas, maybe Malaysia. Need to ensure movers are also healthy and they are not, affected by the COVID. Need to also engage disinfection of the unit as an added precaution. Can the tenant choose to move in at a later date after 1st of June? Say they are starting 1st of June and start paying rent from 2nd of June. Original commencement date is actually 8th of May. So now we spoke about commercial, tenants extending the start date. So now Sas is asking about residential tenant. Is it possible for them to do the payment of the starting rent date to be adjusted to a later date?
I would say that if the tenancy has already been signed, then the tenant is supposed to fulfill. I mean, both parties are supposed to fulfill the terms stated in the tenancy agreement. It still comes back to the same as what we mentioned throughout the entire show. It all depends on, let's sit down and talk about it and come to a compromise, right? Because the owner needs to understand the tenant is facing problem with logistics.
Yep. So Belinda says the stoppers are about $60, so you can withhold that amount, refund the balance of the deposit. Yeah, I think that's the right.
Remember to deduct the handyman's work also.
All right, Adam, thank you for your time today. I believe I've taken almost 1 hour of your time, and I think we had some good engagement. So if you guys enjoyed the program, do give us some likes and maybe share and like my page. So we'll be having more such shows in the upcoming days or weeks, because our objective is to list out all the pain points at this current status, situation, and try to talk about it, and find answers. All right, thanks again, Adam, for joining me.
Thank you, Rama.
It was a pleasure hosting you on my show. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.